Awesome. And our recording has started, so we'll dive in. And if anybody else joins us in the waiting room, Nikki will let them in. So welcome to the Evergreen Reportable Events and Progress Notes Enhancements webinar. For those of you who haven't met me yet, and I'm sure most of you have, my name is Lesley. I joined the Office of Aging and Disability Services in February of 2016. And I'm the Information Services Manager here. And my primary role within the office is oversight and management of our electronic data systems, which includes our current system, EIS, and futuristically, our system, Evergreen Data System. Joining me on the presentation is Walter Goodlett. If you joined our first webinar, you met Walter at that session, at one of those sessions. He is our Evergreen project organizational change management and communications subject matter expert. So he's helping us put together all of these webinar series and communications and other related topics for our transition. And also here on the session with us is Nancy Kitchin. She is part of our ODES data and compliance team. She's one of the specialists on that team and has been one of the early and critical Evergreen project participants and has participated in all of our requirements gathering and some of our testing. Next slide, please, Nikki. Over the next hour, I plan to share a little bit of project background, the enhanced features of the Evergreen Reportable Event Form and progress notes, some next steps, details for how you can stay engaged and get some support. And then we'll wrap up by answering as many questions as we can live on the call. Couple of housekeeping items before we get started. You have all been added in listener mode, therefore your line is muted. If you have questions, we ask that you type those questions into the Q&A using the Q&A icon at the bottom of your Zoom window. And you can do that throughout the presentation. As you think of a question, you can pop that into the Q&A. And then I'll answer as many of those as we have time for at the end of the presentation. And all the questions that get entered in there will be responded to. Even if I can't get to them live, we'll add them, the responses to those to our Q&A, frequently asked questions that we'll be posting out on our project website. Next slide, please, Nikki. The purpose of the Evergreen Data System project is to implement a single electronic system to replace the office's three major legacy data systems. Those are EIS, MapSys, and MeCare. The project is being completed in a phased approach. This is the first phase, which included 3 production releases. The first release was back in May of 2019 and was a small pilot release. The second larger production release was in June of 2020, and that was for our adult protective services and guardianship conservatorship programs. And this upcoming third release will be for our developmental disabilities and neurobehavioral programs, and it is planned for January 16th, 2024. The primary goal is to enhance the quality of services for our constituents. Some of the benefits that we'll receive from this new electronic data system include automating some of our currently paper or manual processes, reducing some of the redundant data entry that we have in our existing system, streamlining some of our workflows and processes, and improving our data and reporting. Next slide, please, Nikki. During today's webinar, we will cover both the reportable event form and progress notes. And both of these forms and note have been enhanced for more standardized and consistent data capture, and for the reportable event form specifically to align more closely with the CMS critical incident reporting requirements and make it easier to identify trends in reporting. Please note that I will be providing a very high-level overview and may not point out every field or feature on each of the slides that are being presented today. However, there will be plenty of time for you to explore the system between now and January. And also, please keep in mind that access to the Evergreen person records and forms is role-based. So depending on your role, you may or may not have access to everything that you're seeing here. And we will have role-based training in the month of December and some in early January, where you'll get trained on all of the details related to the forms and modules that your role will have access to. But an example of how role-based access differs is case managers and or care coordinators will only see person records that they are explicitly assigned to, and then all of that person's forms, where external provider users will only see persons with a location assignment to a location within their organization and only be able to access forms that their role has the ability to access and that have been created by a user within their organization. The reportable event form can be found by navigating to a person record, and there are several ways to navigate to the person record. You can do that through search, or if you have an explicit relationship like a case manager or care coordinator, you can select the person from your caseload list on your My Dashboard. Or you may be a user role that will access reportable events through queries or notifications, and many other roles will also be able to access reportable events through notifications and queries as well. Once you have navigated to the person record, you'll click on the Forms and Plans icon, which I've circled in red on the left navigation menu. And it appears white because when I took this screenshot, I was clicked into this Forms and Plans list page. So that's why it appears white instead of the regular green background. And this is the all forms list page. So when you click on that Forms and Plans icon, it's going to bring you to the screen that you see here in the central content area, and it contains all forms and plans for this person. You can filter, sort, keyword search to filter to get just the reportable event record that you're looking for from this screen, or you can click on the filter menu, which is also referred to as the hamburger or the upside down pyramid icon that I've circled in the upper right corner of this screenshot. And that will open up the custom notes options, and you can select reportable event, which I circled at the bottom here, and that would bring you to the custom reportable event list page. Next slide, please, Nikki. This is a screenshot of the custom reportable event list page. It looks similar to the all forms list page. However, this page will show only reportable events, and it includes an additional column of data, which is circled in red here and is the incident category. So the all forms list page won't show this particular field of data where this custom reportable events page would. So if that's something you're particularly interested in seeing so that you can narrow down and select the correct reportable event, then you would want to go to this custom list page. Please note that if you navigate from a query, which queries are outstanding work actions, a list of outstanding work actions, or from a notification, which is similar to a tickler in EIS, the system will bypass both of these list pages and take you directly into the selected or identified reportable event itself. If your role includes the ability to create reportable events, you can do so from either this custom list page or the all forms list page by clicking on the plus new form button that's in the upper left-hand content area of this screenshot. I didn't circle that in red, but it's just up into the left under the reportable event title. Next slide, please, Nikki. Upon creation, so after you've clicked that plus new form button and you've created your reportable event, you'll be presented with the reportable event tab of the form, which is what you're seeing here. This is exactly what you'll see once you click that plus new form and add the reportable event form. It will be in a status of in progress when you first create it, which I've circled at the top left here, showing you that the status is in progress. And that's because you haven't filled out any of the content yet. all the sections of the form will be defaulted to collapsed, and you can either use the expand all button, which I've circled to the right of the status indicator, and this will open all sections of the form at the same time. It will expand all sections of the form, or you can use the little caret icon to the left of each of the section headers to expand and collapse them manually one at a time. So I circled the little right-facing arrow caret icon that's next to the first section, which is overview in this screenshot. As with any form in Evergreen, you can either scroll to see all of the sections and fields of the form, or you can click the toggle icon that's in the upper right-hand corner, which I've circled in red. And this will open the quick scroll menu, which I've also circled in red in this square with the rounded corners. And this quick scroll menu, just like with the person record, if you participated in our first webinar, if you click on any one of these sections, it will automatically bring you right to that section of the form without you having to scroll to get there. So it's a great time saver. Next slide, please, Nikki. To edit or populate each section of the form, if your role has that access, you will need to expand and click into the section to get the edit modal to open up. So in this screenshot, I had clicked on the first section, which was the edit incident section, and it popped up the modal for me to start populating the data. One of the new features of the reportable event form is the capture of the incident discovery date versus the incident start and end dates. And I've circled the incident discovery date. That's the first field in this form. And then the incident start dates and end dates appear just below that. And then if the incident discovery date is more than 1 business day from the incident start date, then you would also be required to provide a reason for the delay of reporting, which is at the bottom of this screenshot, which I've circled in the square with the rounded corners, is a question that says, why was the past incident just reported? And this question has a pick list with some common reasons, as well as an option of other. So you can select other if the common options don't apply. And then incident dates have also been updated to include start time and end time. These are required fields. So if the times are unknown, then you should populate with the closest possible time and then check the is this approximate checkbox, which is what I've circled in the center of this screenshot. A check mark in this box indicates that this is, yes, this is an approximate time. Next slide, please, Nikki. The Evergreen reportable event form also includes a frequency of occurrence dropdown. This is a pick list, and the options are first occurrence, multiple occurrences, and continuing pattern. If this is the first occurrence that you're aware of, you should select first occurrence. If you're aware of another occurrence of this, then you should select multiple occurrences. If you know of a continuing pattern where this is happening ongoing at a certain time or interval, then you should select continuing pattern. You may not be aware of other reportable events that have been entered, and so you may be selecting first occurrence when there is another occurrence, but that's okay. Our quality assurance team will be monitoring reportable event data and will determine that information on their own. So just respond to this question to the best of your knowledge. Text or narrative fields include gray or ghost guiding text, as well as information icons. So I've circled just below the square with the rounded corners, a little icon. It's probably difficult for you to see, but it's an icon that looks like a light bulb, and it is to the right of the description, the describe immediate response to incident field. And if clicked on, it would contain the same text that's showing up in the text box for this describe field. And the reason for that is because as soon as you start typing into your text field, that ghost or guiding text will disappear. And we wanted you to be able to refer back to it as you're typing into your comment fields or text fields. Next slide, please, Nikki. The incident location drop-down pick list includes several common options such as hospital, residence, public setting, etc. And it also includes an option of other. If you select other, you would be presented with an additional conditional field. And that conditional field is represented in here in the screenshot because I selected the incident location of other. It gave me a field with the label other incident location. And this is a required field because I selected other. So you will need to populate that with some text that describes the other location. And then Evergreen also includes a question about whether the incident location is waiver funded or not. It's a simple yes or no question, and you just populate that based on your incident location that you've provided. Next slide, please, Nikki. Some other new fields which will be captured in the Evergreen reportable event form include whether emergency services were involved, and if yes, which types. So in this example, I indicated that yes, emergency services were involved, and I can select one or more of the emergency services that are available to me, which are ambulance, fire, ambulance rescue paramedics, fire department, crisis team, or warden service search and rescue. So in this example, I selected crisis team. In addition to emergency services, we will also be capturing whether law enforcement was present. If yes, then we have to indicate why. So I did say yes here, and I selected one of the drop-down options that was available to me. There's also an option in that pick list of none of the above. So if none of the pick list options apply, you can select none of the above. Next slide, please, Nikki. We will also capture whether the incident resulted in an emergency room visit and whether there is any suspected abuse, neglect, or exploitation. Please note that a yes response to suspected A&E does not exempt the reporter from their mandated reporting responsibilities under the Adult Protective Services Act, and therefore a call should still be made to the APS hotline. And this message is also displayed in yellow on the screen as a reminder. So in this screenshot, the first circle indicates the yes answer to resulted in an emergency room visit. And then the second circle that I have here is circling the yes answer to do you suspect the incident is an allegation of abuse, neglect, or exploitation. And I said yes. And then the system presented me this yellow text that alerts me that I still need to make my call to the APS hotline, and it gives me that phone number. In order to complete the reportable event, the data enterer will also need to check the attestation text checkbox that's in the third circle here. This indicates their understanding that a 30-day provider follow-up and internal review must be completed, and that they will notify the responsible party if that's not themselves. So in this example, I selected case manager from the options under responsible party. And if I as the data enterer was not the case manager, I have the responsibility to reach out to the case manager and let them know that that I've entered this reportable event and that they need to provide the provider follow-up, that they need to go in and do the follow-up within 30 days. Next slide, please, Nikki. Evergreen offers an additional field type that EIS does not currently contain. This is called a dual list. You will see this field type in several forms, including the reportable event form. In the reportable event form, it's used for selecting the reportable event categories. Dual lists include two boxes. The box on the left includes all of your available selection options, and the box on the right includes all of the options that you have selected. You'll use the check boxes that appear in front of the options to select that item from the list, and then you'll use the arrows that I've circled in between the two boxes to move that item from one box to another. So in this example, I had already selected emergency department visit and law enforcement intervention from my available options on the left, and then I used the little arrow on the top that's right facing to move them into the selected box. If I moved something over there and then I was like, oh, whoops, I didn't actually want to move that one into selected, I would simply check the box. For example, emergency department visit, I would check that little box before that, and then I would use the left facing arrow that's at the bottom to move it back into the available options before I saved. Next slide, please, Nikki. Because my categories required supplemental custom questions, I now see two new sub menu items in my quick scroll menu on the right-hand side of the screenshot, and I circled those. These custom questions are now also being displayed at the bottom of the reportable event form. You can see I circled those as well down here. There's a whole new section on my reportable event form for these custom questions. These custom questions were previously located under the EIS reportable event show menu, but in Evergreen, you do not need to go somewhere else to find the custom questions associated with your categories. They will just be appended to the bottom of the form, and you'll need to fill those out if they're required in order to submit or complete the form. Excuse me. You'll also notice that my completion requirement symbol up at the top of this screenshot that I've circled is still an orange dotted circle. And that is because I have not completed the custom questions yet when I took this screenshot. And you can clearly see that those had not been completed because each of them has an orange exclamation mark inside of a circle in front of it. That's indicating that I need to populate those answers in order to complete my form. Next slide, please, Nikki. Witnesses and participants are added using another new field type and feature in Evergreen. The new field type is called a multi-add list, and it's circled to the left of this screenshot. It's kind of grayed out because when I took the screenshot, I had already clicked on it and it popped up my modal to start populating data. But this is the multi-add list button. And so you click it and it will give you a set of fields, a field set to populate. And then once you've responded to those questions and you click save, then you can go back and click it again to get a whole nother blank set of fields in order to add another. So in the context of a reportable event, if there were multiple witnesses and or participants, you can click that button and add as many field sets as you need to capture each of the witnesses and or participants. Once you open that, or once you click that and it pops up the modal for you to start populating the information, you will first be asked, what is the relationship to the person? And there is a pick list for you to choose from. If you select contact or staff member, it will take advantage of the other cool feature that Evergreen has to offer, which is that instead of having to type in that contact or staff member's information, you'll be able to select them from the person record, and it will draw in and display the information that exists on the person's record. Next slide, please, Nikki. In my example, I selected contact, and then I picked my person, Lesley Test's mother. Her name happened to be Mother Test, which is circled here in the red box. And the system populated her name, her relationship, which is mother biological, and her role, which happened to be private guardian full. Next slide, please, Nikki. Once all of the required fields have been populated, you will be able to select the status of submit from the status field. In order to do so, your completion requirements indicator should look like the example here. So the red circle to the right at the top of this screenshot is showing you that my completion requirements have green check marks icon in front of them now, which means that I've completed all the required fields and I was able to submit. And when I took this screenshot, I had already submitted. So after submission, the status updates to completed, which you can see in the screenshot. It shows that the status is completed. And it will also show any comments that were added when the form was submitted. So when I submitted this, I added a comment of 10/20/23 and my initials. But that content might have additional information. You'll also notice, and I circled in the status dropdown, that there's now a status option of confirm. This workflow status option is available for the assigned case manager or care coordinator, and they will use this status to acknowledge receipt and review of the reportable event. So just like in EIS, the assigned case manager or care coordinator, as well as crisis staff and now quality assurance staff, will receive a notification or a tickler for each reportable event that gets submitted in the system. And the assigned case manager or care coordinator will still have the responsibility to review and acknowledge that. And now they'll acknowledge that by clicking confirm. And the assigned case manager and or coordinator and their supervisor will also start receiving daily notifications if they have not confirmed that reportable event within 1 business day from its submission for each reportable event that hasn't been confirmed. Next slide, please, Nikki. Another way for case managers or care coordinators to ensure that they've reviewed and confirmed all of their submitted reportable events for the person that they serve is to navigate to the queries from the persistent navigation, which is that white top navigation bar, which we covered in the first webinar series. Click on that queries and then select from the query filter icon, which is the little hamburger upside down pyramid, the reportable event pending acknowledgement query, which is what this screenshot is showing you. And once you've selected that query as a case manager or care coordinator, you can simply click run query without populating any of the criteria that are displayed here. And that will give you a comprehensive list of all of your reportable events that you still have not confirmed or acknowledged. Or you can filter by a person's name, first or last name, or date range, or all of the above to get a narrowed set of results. So in this screenshot, I had put in a date range and I got 1 result returned to me that had not been confirmed. And that was for a person who's named Ruby East. And all I would need to do at this point is simply click on that row that has Ruby's information in it. And the system would navigate me directly into this reportable event so that I could review it and simply select confirm. And then if I ran this query again, that result would not show up. It would drop off this query because I've confirmed that reportable event. As a case manager or care coordinator, if you also need to add a progress note related to your reportable event, you will do that separately under the progress notes section of the system, and we'll cover progress notes in just a little bit. And when you do that, you would simply select an activity type of reportable event follow-up. And that's how you'd be able to go back and find the associated reportable events. Next slide, please, Nikki. 30-day provider follow-ups can be submitted with the reportable event or anytime after the reportable event has been completed. The follow-up form is located within the reportable event itself on a separate tab, which I've circled here at the top of this screenshot. So you can see that this was within a reportable event, and I've circled the provider follow-up tab, which I had clicked on before I took this screenshot. And when you first navigate to that tab, it will look exactly like what you're seeing here. It will say no provider follow-up record exists, and you'll see a little plus provider follow-up button, which I've also circled in red in the center of this screenshot. And then you'll simply click that button, that plus provider follow-up button, to create the provider follow-up form. Next slide, please, Nikki. Upon clicking that button, the system will navigate you right into the provider follow-up form, which is what this screenshot is showing you. And it looks very similar to the reportable event form in the sense that it's showing me that the status is in progress because I have not populated any of the data yet, that my completion requirements are not met, and it's indicating that by the orange dotted circle, and all sections of the form will be defaulted to collapsed. I can use that expand all, or I can use that caret icon and manually open one section at a time. I can also use the toggle, just like with other forms, to get my quick scroll menu. And this will show me the sections of the form as well. So the sections of the provider follow-up form are follow-up details, internal review details, remediation action steps, future remediation action steps, and comments. Please note, I'm not going to go over any more of the provider follow-up form in this webinar. However, there will be full reportable event, provider follow-up, and death and mortality review forms training that will be covered in December. Next slide, please, Nikki. So now I want to give you a little bit of sneak peek and information about the progress notes. In order to, just like forms and plans, progress notes can be found by navigating to a person record, and you can do that through the same avenues: search, caseload list, possibly a notification or a query if you have those that are related to progress notes. And then you simply click on the progress notes icon instead of the forms and plans icon, which I had done before I took the screenshot. So you can see that progress notes is white because I was clicked on it. And the system will navigate you to this screen, which is the progress notes, the all progress notes list page. And the progress notes list page is actually a custom list page. It's different than the forms list page. It has different columns of data. So the progress notes list page contains, and this all progress notes list page contains all of the progress notes for the person, all types. So if you want to filter down to a specific note type, you can use that filter menu that's in the upper right-hand corner, that upside down pyramid hamburger, and you can click into a specific note type list page to get just those note types. The all list page will also contain migrated reportable progress notes for this person. You can sort and search from here if you want, or you can use that filter. And the additional or the columns of information that are present on this list page are the note types, which I've circled is the first column in red square with the rounded corners here. Those include general note, provider exploration and discovery note, home support note, crisis residential, and crisis contact note. Other note types are available within the system. They're guardianship conservatorship note, adult protective services note, but these notes are captured within their respective form within Evergreen. And for privacy reasons, APS notes are not viewable from within the person record and can only be viewed by authorized users from within the APS report itself. The person progress note list page includes, in addition to the note type column, the title, the create date, the activity date, a contact name, which in this screenshot, none of these have a contact name because these were not notes with a type of collateral contact. But if any of them had been a note with a contact type of collateral contact, then the name would also appear here. Contact type. The first several characters of the description, I have not had a chance to go find out how many characters, but I believe it's 50 characters will be displayed in the description. And then if more than like 20 of those characters are displayed in the description box, you'll see a little icon to the right of the first few characters, which again, I think is about 20 characters, that looks like a few lines of text with a wrapping arrow. That means that there is a little bit more of the description that you can view from this page by selecting the drop-down caret arrow that's to the right of the row that I've circled in red here as well. The other columns of data on this list page are location and area that the progress note was added. So for this list page, it will either be person or guardianship conservatorship or GXCX, which in this case, all of these were person. Next slide, please, Nikki. When you click the plus new progress note to add a progress note, you'll get a pop-up modal with the note stepper. Depending on the note type you're entering, you'll either have 2 or 3 steps to complete this modal. Step 1 questions are the same for all of the person progress note types. In this example, I've selected the general note from the note type dropdown, and I've added my title and activity date. Next slide, please, Nikki. I then used the editor to format my note description. Options for editing include but are not limited to bold, italics, highlighting, bulleted list, tables, etc. So you can see in here, I've used all of those options. I bolded the words very important. I highlighted the words update the PCP. I added item 1 in my bulleted list, and I put a small table in here with a few rows and columns to show how that would display. Then I selected my contact type of virtual video meeting and provided the hours and minutes spent on this activity. So this in this example, I indicated 0 hours and 45 minutes, and the system converted that to display 3 units for me. Next slide, please, Nikki. Upon saving, I'm brought to step 2. Step 2 of the note stepper is the custom questions related to that specific note type. I'm not going to cover the step 2 for all of the note types today, but if your role does progress notes, there will be training related to progress notes for your role, and likely will cover all the questions in your step 2. So these are the custom questions for general note, and the general note questions are whether this was a billable contact, which is a yes or no, and a multi-select choice for the activity type. In this example, I indicated that this was billable and that this was a home visit. If you were trying to relate this to a reportable event, then you would select the type of reportable event follow-up from here. If this was a collateral contact and you had selected the activity type of collateral contact, you'd enter the collateral contact name, and then that name would show up on the list page. Next slide, please, Nikki. Step 3 is a set of 2 questions which will be asked if you select the activity type of virtual video meeting or in-person visit. Then you'll get step 3 in this general note. And these are questions that are intended to help ensure the safety of the persons that we serve, and they align with the Adult Protective Services Structured Decision-Making Safety Assessment questions. And you can select as many factors affecting vulnerability and or as many factors affecting safety as you observed during that meeting. Or if you didn't observe any factors affecting either of those, you can select none apply in one or both of those questions. Then simply save to be navigated into the progress note to capture any history items and or exploration and discovery that you may have obtained during that meeting or while working on that note. Please note that just like EIS, progress notes will lock down 24 hours after creation. So you should not start a note until you have time to complete it. And notes can only be edited and deleted by an ODES admin user after they have been locked. While it's still in that 24-hour period, the note creator does have the ability to edit or remove that note if needed. But once it's surpassed the 24 hours, you will need to reach out to an administrative staff, someone on my team, for assistance with that. The only exception to the rule of all the data locking down is the end date of the exploration and discovery content. That date can be edited at any time by the creator at any time. And that's just because exploration and discovery content may no longer be relevant. And so we might want to end date that so that it drops off our exploration and discovery report. Next slide, please, Nikki. This screenshot is showing the add exploration and discovery multi-add list, which I've circled in red at the bottom left-hand corner. And the modal, which pops up when you click on that. And the exploration and discovery section will automatically appear at the bottom of the note. It's the fourth section of the note. So I also circled the quick scroll menu. You can see that after I saved the stepper, it shows me that exploration and discovery is the fourth section of this note. Exploration and discovery content is added to help support the comprehensive assessment and person-centered planning process. Content is added under one of the 8 Charting the Life course domain categories and a subcategory within that domain, which is what I've circled in the center of this in the pop-up modal to show you those 2 fields. Content type can be one or more of the types that are in the middle of the modal here, which are strengths, barriers, goals, risks, what is important to or for the person, or what is working, not working for the person. History items can also be captured from within the progress note. You don't need to navigate away and go into the history icon. You can actually add them right from here within your progress note by clicking on the little history widget in the upper left content area, which I've circled in red. This, for more details about history, if you didn't participate in the first webinar, you can go back and listen to that recording. I do talk a little bit more about history under the new features benefits of the person record webinar recordings. Next slide, please, Nikki. Case managers and care coordinators will have access to pull an exploration and discovery report. That can be pulled from the reports section of the system, but it is more user-friendly and useful if pulled from within the print icon that's available in the person banner. It's hidden behind this screenshot, but it's one of those green buttons that's in the person banner, and it's the print icon. There's a report called Exploration and Discovery. And if you run it from there, it will be providing you exploration and discovery items specific to that individual person. And you can specify a date range. Typically, you'll probably do this for the most recent plan year. And you can indicate whether you want to get the exploration and discovery just from general notes or from provider exploration and discovery notes, or both. And this report can be used to inform your comprehensive assessment and person-centered planning process. Next slide, please, Nikki. Once you run the report by clicking on preview, you'll see the results displayed to you within the browser window, or you can click on the export button, which I've circled to the right at the top of the screenshot, and export this set of results into an Excel spreadsheet. Then when you go in to create your comprehensive assessment or person-centered plan, you can actually just copy items right from the Excel spreadsheet and paste them into appropriate fields in those forms as a way to save yourself some time during that process. Next slide, please, Nikki. So what's next? If you haven't already registered for the last informational webinar series that's being offered November 13th through the 15th, we encourage you to do that. We'll be sharing a sneak peek at the streamlined person-centered planning process and prior authorization in that series. You can also find links to register for that series in the monthly emailed communication that was sent out on October 20th, or you can go right to our project website and the registration links are there at the bottom of that first page of our project website. Please continue to read our emailed communications, which will be sent out after each webinar series, and we also will intend to send out some additional communications during the months of December and January to remind you of training and upcoming deploy. Please continue to work on cleaning up your EIS data to ensure the most successful migration possible. If you want to find more details about how you can do that, you can refer to the email communication that went out on September 25th. And that had a subject of update on Evergreen Release 3 rollout and has also been posted to our project website if you want to find it there. And please register for your role-based training topics once the registration links are posted a little bit later in November. Hopefully next week we'll get those posted out there. We're just finalizing all of the topics and final schedule right now, and then we'll get all of those registration links created and we'll post that out on our project website, and then we'll email you after they've been posted to let you know that they're out there and that you can begin registering. Next slide, please, Nikki. You can also stay engaged and get support by continuing to leverage your volunteer network of change champions that will be helping us transition to Evergreen by working at the grassroots level. You can find out more information about who the change champions are and what their role is on our project website. Also, all project communications are being sent via email, so please make sure that your email address is correct in the EIS system, and if not, notify the EIS user accounts team at eissupport.dhhs@maine.gov. If you have any questions or feedback at any time, please reach out to our project email at evergreen.dhhs@maine.gov. And for links to all of the project communications, the recorded webinars, and our FAQs, please visit our Evergreen project website at maine.gov/dhhs/EIS/Evergreen. And we are still working on the frequently asked questions from the first webinar series. Hope to get those starting to post some of those out there later this week. But there were several good questions and it's taking us a little bit of time to get those posted up there. So please be patient. But we will do the same thing with the questions that come in from this series as well. We will compile all of those and put a set of questions and answers out on the project website for everybody to review. Next slide, please, Nikki. So we have reached the Q&A portion of the webinar. So let me see what we have. We do have some questions in the Q&A and we'll answer those. If you have other questions, please feel free to add those to the Q&A right now, and I'll try to get to them before we have to wrap up here in a few minutes. Any that I can't get to, we'll certainly add to our FAQs. Marty asks, how soon will we receive access? Great question, Marty. So some internal system users have been included and are doing some early testing in the system right now with us. Our project team is still working out some of the final bugs and working with our vendor to remediate those, but we have added some internal staff, a small group that is helping us with some of that early testing. We'll also be expanding that group to include our Change Champion network, hopefully sometime next week. So those individuals will also be getting into the system for some early testing and feedback. But everybody will be able to get into the system in December. So once the your training topic has been covered, you will receive a follow-up communication with access to the system so that you can have at least a month or so, depending on where your training topic was, to navigate around, play around, get familiar with the system, and be able to ask additional questions before we go live. Cynthia asks, will we be provided with copies of these slides following the training? Yes, great question, Cynthia. So all of the webinar slides and recordings and frequently asked questions will be posted out on our project website. The slides and the recordings for these for this session, as well as the other sessions that I'm doing this week related to this topic, will be posted out there, if not Friday afternoon, early next week. And the slides and recordings from the first session are already out there, I believe. So you can go to the project website and get the recordings and slides from the person record new features if you weren't able to participate in that one. And Carol also asked, will these slides be available to view and print? Yes, you can certainly download them from our project website and take a closer look at them or print them. And if you have any follow-up questions, you can certainly send those into our evergreen.dhhs@maine.gov email address, and we will respond to those as part of our frequently asked questions. Carol also asks, if the incident site is at a community place, but is during waiver support time, community support, work support, or home support, would that be considered waiver funded or not? That is a great question, Carol, and I do not feel comfortable responding to that. So I will ask one of our business staff persons to respond to that as part of the frequently asked questions. And we'll make sure that there's an answer posted out there for you. Someone else asks, as far as the supervisor being sent a query if reportable event hasn't been acknowledged in a day, is there anything within Evergreen that can include a message back for when a case manager is out for vacation or other reasons, so the supervisor isn't getting notices when we know why the acknowledgement might not have been approved? Great question. So it is a notification that will be sent. There is a feature in Evergreen called coverage. So if a caseworker or care coordinator or anybody that's a user of the system is going to be out of the system for a period of time, they can set up coverage for somebody else to log into the system on their behalf and complete their work activities on their behalf. It will give that person that they've delegated access to see things from their role's point of view, but anything that that person does will be tracked in the database as being completed by that individual that was providing the coverage. There is no way to suspend that notification specifically. However, there is a feature in Evergreen called messages, which is similar to email. And so if somebody is out and someone else is covering, that person that's covering could use the messages feature to send the supervisor a message saying, hey, so-and-so's out of the office, I'm covering. You're going to get daily reminders on these reportable events that have come in for them, but they'll clean up their reportable events when they get back if the reportable events aren't going to be reviewed by the the person that's delegated for coverage. Marty asks, oh, no, same question. So she says, thank you. Chris asks, will there be any live walkthrough of the system, not just static slides? Great question, Chris. So right now I'm using static slides mostly because we're still testing in the system. And so I didn't want to be caught off guard and for the system to not behave the way that I planned for it to behave. Role-based training that's being provided by our vendor, FEI Systems, will be provided in a training environment, which will not have active testers and issue remediation occurring in it. So some of the role-based training will be done in live demo form. Some of the training will be also slides. It's depends on the area of the system being demoed and how complex it is to stage data in order to show an accurate test. But there will be some live demos during training. That said, again, everybody will be given access to get into the system and actually navigate around on your own. And it will be a sandbox training environment where you can add forms, edit forms, delete things, and really just get as familiar with the system as possible before we go live. That is all the questions that I'm seeing in the Q&A right now. If there are any other questions, please feel free to pop them in. We do still have a few minutes together, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. And Nikki was gracious enough as well. I think you all can see the meeting chat. She has put the link to our project website right in there, so you can click on that or copy and paste that. She also gave you the email address for our EIS support team if you need to update your EIS email address. And she also gave you the email address for our Evergreen support email address. So you can certainly send questions or feedback to that email address at any time. And also after we complete this webinar, if you think of any questions that you didn't have a chance to ask, you can send those to that evergreen.dhhs, and we will also respond to those as part of our frequently asked questions that we'll post out on our website. Awesome. I still don't see any additional questions. Thank you all for participating in today's session. It was really great to have you on here with us, and there will be 2 more sessions, so please let any of your colleagues know that may not have participated yet. There will be a session on Friday at 8 a.m. and another one on Friday at noon, same exact webinar. So if you participated in this one, you definitely don't need to participate in those, but also make sure you get registered for our series November 13th through the 15th. Those registration links are out on our website. And everybody have a fabulous evening and a great rest of the week.